So welcome to Sports, but I'm your host, Ted Sevransky. Teddy covers, joined here by, wait a minute, that's not Paul Howard. That is Drew Martin. SportsBIT has been around now for a little bit over a year. We started the week after the Super Bowl last year. And in all that time, this is our first ever guest host. Pauly's been on every show. I've been on every show. Doesn't matter. We're sick, we're dying, we're on vacation. We took 1 week off last summer. Don't want to take any weeks off now. Let's get a guest host. Let's train him up. And that man is Drew Martin. Drew, welcome to the program.
Teddy, thanks for having me, man. And I'm glad you guys turned to me. You know, both of you guys are like Cal Ripken. So once the day comes, just happy to be here, buddy.
Well, glad to have you on board. Let's see how we do, because we have a loaded show today. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. We've got big game breakdown, Rockets versus the Heat, the Raptors versus the Hornet, Maryland's versus Northwestern in college action, deep dive, 5 great minutes with BMOC talking mid-majors in college hoops, and of course, the play of the day to close out the show. Let's start with a bad bet from last night. There were a handful of them, but this one really stood out. The Pitt Panthers took a ton of money against Virginia Tech. They lost the game in outright fashion.
They did, and it was a big win for Virginia Tech. You know, just on Sunday, they went in and beat their arch rival, Virginia, in double overtime. A 2-day turnaround, Teddy. They hit the road, go into Pittsburgh, get a huge ACC win. Now sitting at 18-7. They might have just punched their NCAA ticket there. And Buzz Williams, he's really got his kids playing hard. In a setting where they could have come out flat, he had them playing really well.
Yeah, I mean, bettors expected Virginia Tech to be have some kind of a letdown after that double OT win. Plus, of course, the absence of Chris Clark for this game. That was a big move. Pitt bet from -3.5 up to -5.5. The game turned one possession in the second half. Virginia Tech got a 7-point play. They had a layup with an intentional foul. They hit a 3-pointer in the ensuing possession before Pitt touched the ball. Those 7 points made a big difference in a game that the Hokies won by only 3. Bad for the books last night. I'll tell you what, there was a big move toward Chicago when it was announced Jimmy Butler was going to play even without Dwayne Wade. Bulls from +7 all the way down to +4. They beat the Raptors outright, 105-94.
Yeah, the Raptors missed Terrence Ross's energy off the bench, and they didn't have Ibaka back yet. Also, you know, one thing, the books did get some money back with a heavy total move from 205 to 211. It landed 199, so the books lost the side, but they made money in that total.
Yeah, they sure did. As you mentioned, a big move on the over, and I'm surprised that without Dwayne Wade they put that much over, but I think it was Jimmy Butler. They're saying Butler's in the game, they're going to score a bunch of points. Of course, it wasn't Butler. Butler only had 19 in the contest. Doug McDermott was the guy for the Bulls last night. 20 points off the bench. And, of course, Toronto, it was more than Ross's energy off the bench. They missed his production. More turnovers than assists last night. So, bad result for the books on the side, though. As you mentioned, they won a fair bit on that total. Another bad result for the house, and this is one where the recreational books really took a beating because the Cavs and the over took money last night. Cleveland, a bet from -3.5 up to -4 at Minnesota. Total bet from 218.5 up to 219.5. And again, both side and total were higher at the recreational books, with everyone betting on Cleveland.
Yeah, these two teams combined for 54 assists and 50% shooting. No Kevin Love, no problem. Channing Frye had the Cavs' highest plus-minus. Cleveland +17 in his 33 minutes. He had 21 points, 10 boards there for the Cavs.
And bettors nailed some real under-the-radar games last night. This is a little bit of a mid-major-centric show. The deep dive with BMOC, all about the mid-majors later in the program. Let's talk about a couple of them here. On a record-breaking night for Central Michigan, it was Buffalo that took all the money last night. Buffalo bet from -1.5 to -3.5. The bettors got it right, with the Bulls winning by 6.
Yeah, record-breaking. You're right, Teddy. I mean, Marcus Keene, this guy's been scoring all over all year long, and he actually broke Dan Marley's Central Michigan Chippewa single-season total points record in the loss to Buffalo. So they lose by 6, but hey, he broke the school record.
Yeah, Marley's, what was that record? It's got to be the 80s when Marley was scoring points in bunches up in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Central Florida took a bunch of money last night, -5.5 up to -8.5 against Tulsa. They rout the Hurricane, win by 18, but bettors did get one big line move wrong. The wise guys were dead wrong about this one. Eastern Michigan bet from Pick'em up to -3 against the Ohio Bobcats. The Eagles lose that game outright by 8.
Yeah, this is an interesting game here in the MAC, Teddy. I've had my eye on Ohio all year long. Their best player, Antonio Campbell, he's been out for about a month. He averaged about 16 points. Ever since then, they've been an up-and-down team. And the Bobcats really came out tonight, winning by 8. So, yeah, very interesting game there for the MAC conference.
So let's talk industry news. This is a story we've been following here on SportsBIT for some time. The Raiders' potential move to Las Vegas. And we heard reports it was a done deal, and then we heard reports it's completely dead. You know, Sheldon Adelson backs out of the deal, Goldman Sachs backs out of the deal, and now everyone's like, what's going to happen to Oakland? Well, the Raiders president, Mark Bedane, came out saying, quote, "You'd be surprised how many people are interested in funding this project." He said multiple financial institutions have called to express interest in joining the project. We're an industry where we're used to plugging along. We're used to having starts and stops. Mark Davis made a commitment to Governor Sandoval, and we intend to see that through. There's a quote from Bedane. So Raiders to Vegas is most assuredly not dead, Pauly. Drew.
Hey, that's only the first time. It's not.
I know. No, believe me, in my head, I've already said it 8 times. Every time I'm talking to anyone, I'm saying Pauly. But Drew, what do you make the number? Raiders to Vegas. Are they favorites? Are they dogs?
I'd open it up at -120 favorites to be in Las Vegas by 2020.
Really? You're going to say the Raiders are chuck? Because at that number, I got to take the no. Because anything that you think in the NFL is going to happen, it happens slowly. You still have to get 24 owners to come in, and you still have to get the commissioner's office to sign off on the gambling issue. So I can't make it chalk at this stage. At -120 / +100 on the no, I'll take a no. But give me +150. Yeah, I might be interested.
Think about it, though, Teddy. If you're a fan of a team, either the Dolphins, New York Giants, whatever, and your team has 8 away games, and one of them is in Las Vegas to play the Raiders, that's the game you're going to. It'd do big things for Las Vegas, and I think it'd be great for the NFL. It's just, the gambling, it's not the 70s anymore, man. Let's go, NFL.
I'm with you 100%, but just because we say it doesn't necessarily make it true. Things don't always happen in the real world just because they're supposed to happen or because it's a good scenario. I'm with you. It'd be a great scenario for Vegas. It'd be a great scenario for the Raiders. And I think it'd be good for the NFL over the long term. But wishing it does not make it so. They're still going to come up with many hundreds of millions of dollars to complete this financing. You going to write him a check, Drew?
I'm a couple decades away from doing that.
I hear you. When we come back, it's big game breakdown time right here on SportsBIT.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Big game breakdown time. Let's start in the association. Toronto, -6 against Charlotte. Total 212.5. And this is a Raptors team that after losing again last night, now 4-11 straight up in their last 15 games. Of those 11 losses, 9 of them have come in straight up fashion as favorites. You've just been betting against Toronto on the money line for the last month. You made a small fortune. They made a move they needed to make. Bringing in Serge Ibaka from Orlando doesn't look as if he's going to play tonight. The question is, will it work? Because I'll tell you what, Andrew, this Raptors defense has had some issues so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Toronto defense numbers, points per 100, 2016, 102.7. That's number 11 in the association. When you move to 2017 this year, 106.2. That's number 17 in the NBA. How can you allow over 106 points per game and still have hope to win a series in the playoffs? I'll tell you how. Toronto, 106. Boston, 106. Cleveland Cavaliers, 106. That's how, Teddy.
Yeah, of course, it's points per 100 possessions, not per game. But the Raptors defense on par with the defenses of the other two serious Eastern Conference contenders. The question I have is whether Serge Ibaka still has game. Because at many times in Orlando, he looked like he was coasting on defense. Now, maybe it's because the Magic weren't going anywhere. But when you look at the block shots, look at the graphic. It shows it real clearly. A steady decline. This is the guy that was blocking close to 4 shots a game and 3 shots a game. And now he's down to 1.6 this season after going 1.9 last year. He's averaging 15 points. He matched his 2004 career high in averages, but block shots right now are at a career low. I wonder if that downward trend is a cause for concern. But Kyle Lowry doesn't seem too worried.
Yeah, I got a good quote from Kyle Lowry, actually. I think he's a great addition to any team, especially ours, where we add some shot blocking, some outside shooting, some inside toughness, some athleticism, running up and down the floor.
And I agree. Ibaka will be a good addition for Toronto once he fits in with that team. Of course, the All-Star break can't come soon enough for the Hornets. This is a squad that is 1-10 straight up in their last 11 games. Their only win during that span came over Brooklyn, the worst team in the NBA, and they barely got that win. They beat them by 4. They were minus 10 point favorites in that game, so failed to cover ATS. They've lost 5 games outright as favorites during that span, and this is something we talked about on SportsBIT the other day. The Hornets were outscored 56-32 in the paint by Philadelphia in their last loss. They were rebounded 51-33 by the Sixers, and that came after Nick Batum guaranteed a win Joe Namath style. Steve Clifford, quote, "They worked us over. I didn't realize it was that bad." When you're getting worked over by Philly without Embiid or Okafor, that's a problem, but Nicholas Batum doesn't seem too worried about it moving forward. Does he, Drew?
Now, I quote Nicholas Batum, "We can't drop our head. We can't stop believing. We can't quit. We're 2 games from the 8th spot. We're not 15 games behind. We're right there. We're right there, and we know we have a good team. So all we got to do is keep believing, keep practicing. We're going to get it right there because we have a good coaching staff, the right players."
That's a positive quote for a team that's lost 10 of their last 11. I'll say that. It's not the veteran throwing his teammates or his coach under the bus. The Rockets take on the Miami Heat tonight. Houston, 9.5, 222 the total. And this is a fascinating game because the markets and me, we don't know how to price Miami right now. They were on until they weren't. It's an issue. Is this team a team on a 13-2 run, a team we should be pricing over here? Or are they a 24-32 team that just had their run and now they're back to normal? The last 2 games for Miami, ugly. They lost to the depleted 76ers squad and the last place Magic. The Magic lost game by 17. They were minus 28 against the spread, and they only had the lead for 1 possession the last 2 games combined. Defense allowing 117 and 116 to teams that rank number 29 and number 30. That's next to last and dead last in the NBA in offensive points per 100. So when you're giving up a $117 and a $116 to those type of teams in back-to-back losses, it's definitely a concern.
Yeah, and the Heat went as Goran Dragic went. Best stretch of his career in hot streak, but now 5 straight games of over 34 minutes. He may be wearing down, Teddy.
Sure, he's a guy who could definitely, I'm with you that he played the best stretch of basketball of his career during Miami's winning streak. The Heat go as Goran Dragic goes. In the last couple of games, he has looked a little bit worn down. Rockets are set to blast off. Look, they've only played 1 road game since January 29th. They've been home since last Thursday, and the only game during that span was a rout over Phoenix. They beat them by 31 last Saturday night. So you have 4 days off, and then 1 game, and then the All-Star break. So you talk about fully focused on the 1 game, and they're going to be focused here because the last meeting, they lost to Miami, 109-103, back in Miami on January 17th. That was the first win of that long Miami winning streak. But look at the line adjustment. Houston was -7 on the road in that game. They're only -9.5 at home, and the Rockets' power rating hasn't gone down. That's all Miami's power rating going up and up and up and up and up over the last month plus. And of course, that game wasn't much about Houston just missing shots, just 9 of 39 from 3-point range. It didn't make any of them. James Harden, we got open shots. We just missed them. The one thing with Houston now, compared to that last meeting, is they're a deeper team now. Clint Capella back in the starting lineup again. That sets up the rest of the rotation much better because he's going to bring focus tonight. It was his first game back after missing a month at Miami in the first meeting. He went 0 for the field and did not score.
Yeah, I got a good quote from Clint Capella as well, Teddy. "That was my first game in a month. Now it's nothing about that. I feel way better. I feel in shape and ready to go. Whiteside is a good player. It's always good to go against a guy like that. Compared to where I was when I first played him, and now is a big difference. I feel really good now and ready to go against him."
That sounds like a positive quote from Clint Capella and the Houston Rockets. Let's go one from the college ranks, Maryland and Northwestern. Big Ten action. Northwestern -2 at home, total 137. And look, Northwestern's on the way to the tournament. The win at Wisconsin probably punched their ticket and put them over the hump. But wins like that and a trip to the tournament also makes them favorites in settings in which they would have been underdogs in the past. I mean, last year, Maryland on this floor -4.5. This year, Northwestern -2. And it's a Terps team, a Wildcats team that had been 0-2 straight up and against the spread without Scotty Lindsey. And they got crushed against ATS, 24.5 points in that game before that upset at Wisconsin. And in the Wisconsin game, they got 25 points from Brian McIntosh. But I wonder if they were special anywhere else. They really weren't in that contest. McIntosh got hot. He won him the game.
Yeah, Teddy, it's interesting to see this Northwestern team soaking up money in the markets. And good quote from McIntosh. A lot of teams can feel sorry for themselves. When they have their leading scorer out with illness and things are falling apart, it shows a lot of character from us. And we talked about being strong together and having a belief in ourselves that we could accomplish something special, end quote. And keep in mind, the Wildcats are doing it with defense. Number 2 in the Big Ten in defensive efficiency. Number 1 in effective field goal percentage allowed. So really dominating on the defensive side there in the Big Ten play.
Well, Maryland's faced a fair few tough defenses on the road, and they've had end-game poise in all of those games. Melo Trimble has been a monster. They've been road underdogs 5 times in Big Ten play. They've won all 5 of those games in outright fashion. Of course, Trimble's leadership shows. I mean, you have 3 freshman starters scoring in double digits, in Big Ten action. It also helps to have another senior, DeMonte Dodd. He doesn't have a great stats, but this is one of those guys who brings so much more to the team than the stats will ever show. He's their tough guy inside. And DeMonte Dodd ever gets hurt, you better fade Maryland right away. He's an impact player for that team.
Yeah, Maryland is an efficient team. They knock down threes. And keep in mind, the Terps are 8-1-1 ATS in their last 10 games overall. And Maryland's 12-3-2 against the number, their last 17 Big Ten games. So really cashing for their backers there in Big Ten conference play, Teddy.
We'll get back to this game when it comes to play of the day time.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
It's deep dive time, and we're going to go back to someone we had on SportsBIT just a few weeks ago, BMOC, Jeffrey Nadeau. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me again, Teddy. Always a pleasure.
Now, it's tough to be a guest. I know that. When you're on somebody else's show, wherever the host goes, you've got to go. So last time when I had you on, I kind of pigeonholed you. I'm like, talk about the Power 5 conferences, the big schools, the schools everyone sees on TV. But as we both know, when you're talking about the schools you can make the most money with, it's not always the Power 5 conference schools that we want to talk about. And I know that today we're going to talk about mid-majors that you want to bet on and against. And I'm going to leave it to you, BMOC. Who do you want to bet on? Who do we want to bet against?
Right now, Teddy, the team I'm betting on and I'm buying high on is Furman, this Paladin team who is unbelievably in first place down in the Southern Conference. I think a lot of people thought East Tennessee State, Chattanooga would rule the roost down there this year, but Furman is now the #1 team in this conference. They're really starting to play well. ATS as well, covering 4 or 5. And what's great about them, Teddy, is they're probably going to be listed as an underdog, even being first in the conference, coming up in some of their games on the road at East Tennessee and at possibly even Wofford. This is a good ATS team. They're covering all year, and they've been great in the underdog role. I think there's definitive value now in the Paladins, who still, they are in first place. I still think the markets look at Chattanooga. They see, Wofford's always a darling, teams like that. Furman is now a team that I think still has value. They've already beat East Tennessee, already beat Chattanooga. I like the Furman Paladins going forward down in the Southern Conference. A team to fade, a team to be all totally away from going forward, Little Rock. This team was kind of a darling last year in the tournament under Chris Beard. He's long gone over to Texas Tech. This team is 13-13. They've been awful ATS this year, and they just can't win on the road. They're one of the worst road teams you're going to find. 3 of their final 5 games are on the road. Graduations hit them hard. They've been unable to score. They've been unable to kind of get any sort of cohesion at all this year. Little Rock after a nice season last year, definitely a team that I'm looking to fade for the rest of the year here and into the conference tournaments.
So, when we look at the biggest point spread winners in college basketball this year, all right, Gonzaga, the number one team in the country, has been also the biggest moneymaker, and that's certainly something to talk about. But there's also teams like Middle Tennessee and Marshall and St. Peter's, South Dakota, all of these mid-majors to lower, smaller conference squads that are making people money consistently this season. What are some teams that you found success with this year that you think might still offer some value?
Yeah, the team, Teddy, I'm looking at, one of them is George Mason. They've been a great underdog team all year. They really thrive in the underdog role. I'm not a big fan of them as a favorite, but in the dog role, 8-3 this year. They have 2 senior guards that can really he can handle a VCU press. They can go on the road and win at a UMass or a Dayton. They're a team that's heavily senior laden. They're New York guards, 2 guards, veterans. They know how to handle pressure. They've been a great underdog team. One other conference, Teddy, gets no love. These actually get 0 love because they're never lined. But when they are, I've made a lot of money betting on MEAC and SWAC teams, particularly the ones that are on TV. They're the ones that are lined. A lot of value. Bookmakers don't seem to know anything about them. The public knows nothing about them. It's a niche market, but it's a good niche market if you know where to look at with those games.
So I was looking at the biggest losers in college basketball this year. They all seem to be these West Coast teams, Pacific and Long Beach and Cal Poly and Santa Barbara. Do you think that's randomness, or do you think there's something about teams on the West Coast where the bad ones have just been overvalued this year?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, but that Big West Conference, Teddy, is particularly really weak this year. I mean, you got Cal Poly, Santa Barbara. They've been hit pretty hard by injury. I mean, Long Beach kind of didn't give themselves any favors. Scheduling the out-of-conference schedule they had this year was just a bear that really set them kind of behind the 8 ball. But, I'm not sure. I think a lot of it has got to do with just bad luck with injuries and things like that as far as the programs are concerned. But the Big West is undoubtedly down this year as far as some of the worst teams in the country are going to come out of that conference.
BMOC, last question for our deep dive into the mid-majors and teams you can make money with in college hoops. What's a team that we don't know of, a team that we aren't talking about at all right now, that's going to be a surprise in their conference tourney and maybe win it, a team you can get great value with at this stage of the campaign?
Yeah, this team's gaining steam. St. Peter's, the Peacocks, 14-6 this year overall. Teddy, they win on the road. What you have to do in March, win on the road. They got to go up to Albany. I think they can really unseat Iona and Manhattan. They play fantastic defense, and this is the big one. They've covered 12 of 16 against their conference opponents this year. Look out for the Peacocks. You're going to get some good value in their conference tournament.
BMOC, where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter at Jeff Nader. You can also find me at bmocwins.com, and I'm also a contributor here at SBRpicks.com.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll have you back.
Do your research before you bet. Check out our ratings guide to see which books have the best ratings and sign-up bonuses. Open up several accounts and shop for lines at SBRodds.com. Always be ahead of the game.
Thanks for the 5 great minutes, BMOC, but now it's play of the day time. Drew Martin, where are we going for Wednesday?
Teddy, play of the day on Wednesday. Game number 547, Maryland Terrapins +2. Terps Road Warriors, 9-1 straight up away from home. This is their role. Justin Jackson has been the Terps' leading scorer on the Big Ten road, shown enough game to possibly be in the NBA next season. Take the Terps +2 tonight.
Maryland +2, that's our play of the day. Thank you so much, Drew Martin. Fantastic job filling in for Pauly. Thanks to BMOC for joining us, and thank you for spending time of some minutes of your busy day joining us right here on Sports. We'll be back tomorrow, another loaded show. Pauly, Teddy, right here on SportsBIT. Thanks for joining us.